Hello and welcome to another episode of Track and Ball with myself, Ellen White.
I'm Richard Whitehead.
Now, joining us today, we are incredibly honoured to have an 11-time world champion and a 6-time Olympic champion. He's also one of the most decorated Olympic cyclists of all time. I could probably stop there, but there's more. He is an author, currently a bestseller on Amazon, a motorsport driver, and a loving dad.
And the biggest biceps in Scotland.
We can't wait to hear all about his journey in British cycling, his passions, what drove him to his success. Our guest today is Sir Chris Hoy.
Hey.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thanks for that lovely introduction. Cheers,
That's all right, no problem.
Before we get into the serious question, I've got a question that I've been wanting to ask you for ages, Chris. United, Sir Chris Hoy. Where and when were you told the information that you were going to be a Sir?
Well, there's actually a funny story behind that. They sent me a letter, but it never got to me because it went to my old address. So I didn't reply. So they obviously thought, well, we've not heard from him. We better get in touch. And I was driving along. I was up in Scotland. It was December, I think, and it was pretty dark and rainy. Trying to focus on the road. The phone rang, hands free, obviously. And the call came in, and they said, "Hello, this is so and so from Buckingham Palace." And I thought, it's one of my mates. This is a wind-up, And I said, "Oh yeah, hello." And he said, "I wondered if you got your letter." And I said, "Nope, didn't get a letter." He said, "Oh well, we're writing to offer your knighthood." and I was about to go, like, "Yeah, right. Sling your hook, pal. Who is it? Which one of you is it? Who is this calling me?" And my wife was sitting next to me, Sarah, and she was like going, "It's real." And I was like, Oh yeah, well, yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. I'm really sorry I didn't reply to the letter. So it was. Yeah, I almost told him to take a running jump, but yeah, thanks.
That's awesome.
Who did you take alongside with you when you received it?
Well, very luckily, it was an amazing day because my mum received an MBE on the same day. So we got to take, you get to take two people as guests. So I got to take my wife, my mum and dad were both there, and my sister. So it was we had a double celebration. And when you get when you get your medal, your presentation, you kind of do it in batches. So all the MBEs, then the CBEs and the OBEs. So all the MBEs were in a different room when I was going up to get my knighthood. So my mum was going to miss seeing me and vice versa. So they asked if she could be brought down. And there's a great shot, just a side-on photo of me getting knighted. And in the background, you can see in the doorway, just my mum standing there, her sort of silhouette watching the ceremony. So it's a lovely picture we've got.
So, Chris, one of my first questions to you is, you're one of the most decorated athletes Great Britain has ever seen. And so many athletes look up to you, aspire to achieve your success. And with that comes sacrifice, dedication, blood, sweat and tears. So where does that drive come from for success? And also, where does that winning mentality come from?
I guess, well, what drove me on was the love of what I did. I didn't start out thinking that I was going to be Olympic champion. That was always a dream, but it was a pipe dream, really, because I wasn't even the best in my local club, let alone the best in my city or the best in my country. But I loved doing what I did, and I was ambitious, and I set myself goals, and I always had a clear plan of what I wanted to do in each session or in each race. So I think that what I did have was, that ability to just keep pushing on. And I was really, I think, striving to find where my ceiling lay, where my kind of, my potential would take me. And I never thought it would take me to the Olympics, but I thought, well, maybe I could become one of the best in Scotland, or maybe one of the best in Britain. And at each point where I broke through a new kind of personal best or achieved a new best race result, I kind of thought, well, this is my new base level now. I need to start here. I'm not going to be happy here. Keep pushing on and striving for more. And it was quite late on in my career that I thought I could become a world champion or an Olympic champion. I was probably about 24, 25 before I realised it was possible. And I guess a lot of that was down to the fact we didn't really have coaching back in those days. There literally wasn't a coach for the British team until the late 1990s. My first proper coach came in 1999. So yeah, it was a sort of a long, steady process. There were no sudden massive improvements in performance. It was just a long, hard slog. But at the heart of it was just a love for what I did.
Would you describe yourself as a perfectionist as well, Chris? And how would you describe yourself when you were an athlete? How would you describe yourself as a...
I guess as an athlete, I just tried to make sure I left no stone unturned so that I could get to competition day feeling confident that I was going to be my best. I wasn't confident I was going to win, because you never know if you're going to win or not. It depends on other people. But I was wanting to be confident that I had nothing left in the tank, that I'd done everything I possibly could to be my best on the day. And when you do that, or when I did that, it gave me confidence that I could enjoy the experience, and not be thinking about, well, I'm underprepared. I didn't commit fully to that training session 2 weeks ago, or I went out on a night out and had a few beers last month or whatever. Yeah. It was trying to be the best that I could be. And Steve Peters was our psychologist for our team, and he was a massive influence on me, a massive help in many ways in my life. But one of the best things he helped me with was understanding the difference between focusing on the end goal and worrying about the gold medal and the result and the race itself, versus focusing on the process of what I needed to do to be the best I could be. So he was always about focus on the process, not the outcome. Don't worry about the gold medal, the fear of failure, all that stuff. Be the best you can be. Enjoy the experience. Go out there with a smile on your face and get the most from it.
I remember hearing a story about you from Rob about perfection and Australia. Yeah. Do you know the story I mean? With when you hired a car and you were cleaning this car. And you had, do you want to tell that story?
Is this the roof rack story? Is this the roof rack one? Yeah.
And this is why I think you're a perfectionist.
Well, you see, so I was at the time I had a sponsorship deal with Jaguar, and I was out in Australia. I'd literally retired. I was going to make my official announcement about retirement when I got back from this holiday. We had an amazing 8-week holiday. Before we had kids, me and my wife just went on this driving holiday in Australia, all the way up and down the east coast. And this car had been our we'd used it for the whole journey. It was amazing. And we had bikes, we had a roof rack and bikes on the top. And we got to Adelaide. There was about a mile from the dealership, but the car was a bit manky, needed a clean. And I thought, I can't give back this car, unless I've got to give it a proper clean. It's just rude to hand it back unless you've given it a bit of a spruce up. So we were literally a mile from the dealership, and I saw a car wash, a drive-through car wash. I thought, perfect. And as I turned off, Sarah said to me, "Don't forget, you've got the bikes on the roof." I was like, yeah, it's no problem. And then, boom, it was just, I thought we had loads of space, and it was like just slightly too low, the barrier, hit the bikes, the roof rack then caved into the roof of the car. It bent the roof, it bent the A-frame, cracked the windscreen, wrote the bikes off, and I was just like, oh my God. And then to top it all off, the people at the car wash said, well, you've damaged our sign, the frame, you're going to have to pay for that. I was just like, oh dear. So I guess there's...
The traits of being a perfectionist, right?
Well, I guess, I've learned a lesson there. Give your car back manky and say thank you very much. At least there's no scratch.
I love
That's
that.
what I was going to say. All good intentions, and then that happens.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah, I do cringe when I think about that. It's when you see these, double-decker buses that have gone into tunnels that are too low or whatever, and you just think, I don't quite know how you feel, but I've got a slight feeling.
Now let's talk about British cycling. How do you think British cycling was able to become the world's best, win so many medals, and what were the key changes that were made during your career in order to win and rate and go to those heights?
Well, I think my career kind of spanned the real pre-lottery winning, lottery funding years, right the way through to what it is now, this massive organisation, hundreds of employees, very professionally run. So I feel very lucky that I've experienced both. So I've come from an era when you raced on your own bike, you were loaned a set of wheels for the World Championships, you were given a tracksuit top for the week, which you had to sign out, and then you had to give it back at the end. That was your kit. You had 2 race skin suits for the season. If you crashed and you put a hole in one, then you had one. That was literally how it was. So having gone from the real proper amateur days without any coaching, without any support, to seeing the transition, I feel just, it couldn't have been better. I would change nothing, because I've seen what it's like without the support, but also that you create everything. You take ownership of your own performance. You're not in a system. You're not just following blindly what you're told. You think for yourself. You have your own ideas about what makes you perform well. So yeah, I think the biggest change I would see was lottery funding in 1998. That meant first of all, we got the indoor facility in Manchester. So we didn't have an indoor velodrome in the UK until Manchester was built. So, a wooden track, you can only train outdoors when it's dry. So, basically you would train until September, and then the velodrome would shut in Edinburgh and it would reopen in April. So unless you could afford to go and train abroad and get some, a training camp in the sunshine, which we couldn't in those days, then you were basically training on the road or just indoors on your turbo trainer. So, the lottery funding, without doubt, not just for cycling, the biggest impact in sport in Britain, I believe, was when we started to fund and properly equip our athletes with the chance to do the best they could against other countries. So, money doesn't buy you medals, but it gives you the opportunity to achieve your potential. And I think we've done that really, really well. So, yeah, it changed massively. I guess being ahead of the curve and realising it was Peter Keane was in charge of British cycling back in the mid-90s. And he realised that they could get a bigger piece of the pie, a bigger funding allocation if we won medals, if we had success in the short term. So a lot of sports, they took the money and they spread it really thinly to grassroots and to lots and lots of people, gave them a little bit of money, but that didn't get success immediately. Whereas he recognised they had probably 2 or 3 athletes with real potential to win in the short term. Chris Boardman, Yvonne McGregor, people like Max Chiandri, even Graham O'Brien, funded them, gave them support. They won medals immediately. That got more funding. They could then spread the money a bit wider, and so on and so on. And I think that's how it all started. And from then on, attention to detail, the aggregation of marginal gains is the catchphrase that they used to use. And all that means is looking at every single possible area and trying to optimize it, to be the best at, to everything you can think of. And some things are quantifiable, but some things aren't. We would do things like we had our own mattresses. We'd travel with our own mattresses, so you're sleeping in your own bed essentially every night.
You've got a big suitcase then, yeah?
Yeah, well, joking apart, it's like a big sort of it's an orthopedic mattress that folds up into a fairly large suitcase. Mm-hmm. So you'd get to the hotel, and one of the staff would have gone into your room, taken the mattress off, and put this mattress on with your own pillow and your own duvet. So you felt like you were sleeping in your own bed, even if you were on the other side of the world. So, rest is, your recovery is so important. Your sleep is so important. That was just one example of, all the things we used to try and do to have ticked every single box to be the best we could be.
Some really good takeaways there, Chris. And that ownership's obviously really important for athletes. Those that are watching and listening at the moment, really think about owning your program and communicating effectively with your team. Moving forwards towards Tokyo now, and obviously it's a year down the line. How is British cycling looking at the moment, and has it changed because of the year of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think they're going to benefit from the extra year. They didn't have the best World Championships back in February in Berlin on the track I'm talking about here. Like a number of events, really. I think the world has really taken the performance to a new level. So men's team pursuit, as an example, the Aussies and the Brits have always been the 2 big nations, and they've traditionally it's been gold and silver goes to one or other of these 2 nations. And I think Britain were, 6th or 7th. I think Australia were 8th or 9th. And the world record was just not just beaten, but absolutely obliterated. So to have that extra year, it's given our boys certainly a chance to recalibrate, to refocus, to sort of take the beating and get over that shock. I think they weren't shocked they didn't win, but I think they were shocked by the margin, and really look at how they approach the next 12 months. So other athletes like Laura Kenny, who had a really nasty crash just before the Worlds.
She didn't she? Yeah.
She was lucky to even be competing at those World Championships. So that extra year will have given her time to fully recover, to get back on track. And it's, I guess, we won't know till we get there, because, everybody's had a strange year. Nobody has had an easy year this year, and everybody's been disrupted. It doesn't matter which nation you're competing for. And time away from competition can do funny things to people. It's some athletes need to have constant races to keep that sharpness. Other athletes can thrive just in their own world, their own environment. It's all about the preparation, all about the training. They don't need to be put under pressure. They can arrive on that one day every 4 years and absolutely smash it out the park. So I guess we won't know, and I guess sport is exciting because it's unpredictable, and that's what it's all about.
Now let's go back to kind of your career. So Athens 2004, you spoke about Steve Peters a little bit earlier, sports psychologist. And I read an interview recently where you said he posed a scenario to you 3 weeks before Athens. Can you tell us a little bit about that scenario and how that helped you in the kilo?
Yeah, sure. So just to give a bit of context, I really hadn't engaged with Steve at all up until that point. So he'd been in the team for about a year, and I hadn't really seen the benefit of a sports psychologist. And there was a stigma attached to seeing a psychologist because it was almost seen as a chink in your armor. It was a sign of weakness to go and speak to a psychologist. Whereas now we realise the huge benefits you can gain from that, not just in your sporting life, but your general life. So yeah, Steve came to me and he said, look, how's it going? And I said, it's great. Yeah. And he said, I just want to pose this one scenario. He said, what are you going to do if somebody breaks the world record right before you get on the track to compete? And I was running the time trial event where, one by one, you've got one shot. There's no heats or qualifiers, just one ride to try and win that gold medal. And I was going to be going off last as world champion. And the reason he asked this is because the previous year I'd reacted. So I was last to go the previous year at the World Championships, and I'd looked at the other riders' times. I'd been distracted by their performances, and I'd changed my game plan at the last minute. And he was wanting to ensure this didn't happen again. So I said to him, well, I just won't think about it. If someone breaks the world record, I won't think about it at all. And he said, okay, well, if I say to you right now, don't think about a pink elephant, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Yeah. And this pink elephant, and I was like, right, he's got some sort of mind control, Dan Brown style mind control technique. Something strange going on here. But I said, okay, well then what should I do? And he said, well, you can't not think about something. You have to focus on what you want to think about, and whatever you think about, you focus on that. It'll displace any negative thoughts or any anxious thoughts or any irrelevant thoughts. It's called cognitive displacement, and so we've only got 3 weeks between now and the games. So basically, the long and short of it is, every time you feel stressed or anxious about anything related to the games, I want you to visualize your 1 minute of performance from your perspective, the perfect performance, the perfect race, and see how you get on. But just do that whenever you feel anxious. So I did, and it started off maybe 2 or 3 times a day, and then it got more and more and more. And as I got into the village, it was almost 3 or 4 times an hour probably, because you get more and more stressed. And then by the night itself, on the race itself, I guess just as if he had a crystal ball, 3 guys broke the world record in succession about 5 minutes before I raced, or seconds before I raced. And I used that technique to just focus on myself and to visualize what I wanted to do, not to worry about anybody else or the things that were out with my control, but to focus on me. And again, go back to the process, not the outcome. Don't think about the gold medal. Don't think about the performances those guys have done. Just be the best I can be. And that was what got me through it, because it was such a stressful night. I mean, it's a Hollywood script. It was perfect. The times got faster and faster, and I was the last man to go. But from my perspective, it was utterly terrifying. You're quaking in your boots, but you're just trying to focus on what you can do. And I think that there's this perception that athletes are, supremely confident, and they have no self-doubt. But you guys know it's what it's like. We all doubt ourselves, and it's often what pushes, or certainly what pushed me on, was I don't know if I can do this. I want to see if I can. Let's give it a go. But that was the key moment. I focused on myself, and I won the race, and I became Olympic champion. And that moment, stepping
on the podium. How did that feel? How did that feel to?
Well, you know what it's like. It's surreal. Because you've dreamt of it for so long, and even though you've beaten each of those athletes that you're racing against that night, on other nights, on other occasions, it's about doing it when it matters, on that one night, that one time. And it was relief that it had been worthwhile, that it hadn't gone wrong, because I knew there were so many different things that could happen. I crashed 6 days before the race in the village, just riding around the village, almost got hit by a bus, almost, didn't get to the start line. So so many things can go wrong before, that you're just relieved that it's worked out. And then there's just that, just sheer exhilaration. Just, it's hard to explain just what it feels like at that moment when you step on the podium and they call your name out and then they say Olympic champion after it. It's, it's wonderful.
Yeah, we spoke to Max Whitlock and Rebecca, very similar around the emotions that they had and obviously the opportunity to share it with family and friends. What kind of reaction did you get from them as well? And for me, it's always about kind of being able to share that kind of moment, and especially for the first one, it must have been really special for you.
I think it's when you immediately afterwards you start reflecting on the whole journey that brought you to that point. So, with my dad, going back to the days and sitting in the back of the car, sleeping the way driving down to the south of England to a BMX race, through the night kind of thing. We'd pack the car up on a Friday evening, we'd race on Saturday, Sunday, get back late Sunday night, and he'd be starting at work 7:30 in the morning, I'd be off to school, and then we'd start that process the next Friday. And it was this, it wasn't because he thought we had a chance of becoming a professional cyclist. It was purely for the fun and the joy of doing something that I loved, and also spending a bit of time, father and son, that kind of thing. And you think, never in a million years did either of us believe that would end up where it did. And that's, that is why, I've written a couple of books, but one of the one that sort of centers in on this main concept is Be Amazing. That's my new book. And my point is that I think that anybody, we will all have the potential to achieve more than we ever think is possible. And I think that I always believed that successful people, no matter what field it was they were in, they were different to the rest of us. They were born differently. They were destined for greatness from day one. And yet the more that I've seen in my life and in other people's lives, I know that's not the case. People who are successful are those who have found their passion, and then they've worked bloody hard at it. They've stuck with it. They haven't given up. They've built resilience. They've learned how to deal with failure and setback and disappointment. And they don't make excuses. They've made it happen. That's the key message I want to get across to so many kids out there, that if you really want to do something and if you really love doing it, you can achieve anything, and even if you don't get it, even if, and I think there's too many TV shows and too many things that are fed to our kids that tell them that it's about talent and it's about overnight success and that people who are good are just good at it. And the reality is that every single person has to work hard. Every single athlete, whether it's Usain Bolt or Lionel Messi or whoever, they've all had setbacks, they've all had defeats, they've all had disappointments, but they've sussed out how to get through that and how to learn from them. So, I think it is remarkable once you get there and you look back and you think, how did I end up here on this podium? Yeah. But you've got to try and savor it and enjoy that moment.
Well, I think when people talk about you, Chris, and talk about what you do, it's not just obviously in the velodrome or in the gym, and you've obviously shown that not just in obviously Athens where you won, but then taking that form forwards into Beijing and being the first British Olympic athlete to win 3 gold medals at a Games. How phenomenal you are as a person as well as an athlete. What kind of things did you learn in that process from going from an Olympic champion to actually going, I'm going to own all 3 of these events and nobody's going to stop me?
Do you know what? I never chose to do that because it was kind of thrust upon me. The event that was Olympic champion in Athens was dropped from the programme. So a year after Athens, I got a call saying, the kilo time trial has been dropped from Beijing. So I wasn't going to be able to defend it. And then I was 30, just about to turn 30 at that point. And the decision was, well, do you retire now or do you keep going? And I think it was the carrot that dangling in front of me was London
retire?
2012.
Never.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just the thought, if I really, really, really wanted to compete in London in front of a home crowd, and I thought, well, that is what's going to keep me going. So it was basically 3 years to adapt and learn these 2 new events. I was going to keep going with the team sprint, but I had to learn either the sprint or the keirin. And physiologically, they're quite similar. They're short sprint events, but in terms of the tactics and the techniques involved, they're polar opposites. So the time trial, you're on your own. You've got one ride. It's very measurable. there's no variables or very few variables. The keirin and the sprint, there's loads of variables. There's tactics, there's physical element. You've got bumping and barging. You've got to play to your strengths, expose your opponent's weaknesses, all that kind of stuff. And that was very new to me. So yeah, it was purely down to the people around me. This amazing team of people who had the expertise to simplify it and to teach me the important things as quickly as possible.
And that's hard, isn't it? Having the right team around you. Sometimes we remember that the person that crosses that white line, but forget about the people that's behind them. And I know athletes in the celebration, in winning, they always mention their team around them. But we do consistently concentrate on this individual when the bigger picture is that, like, even for me, I've got 12, 13 people that provide me with support in my event, and I'm sure it was the same for you.
Yeah, and each one of those people, without them, the whole building falls. That foundation, whether it's your physio, your mechanic, your partner, your wife, whoever it is that's emotionally there for you. It's not just about the coach that you see rolling you onto the start line. For me, I had similar, so maybe a dozen people who are absolutely central to me being able to perform at the best of my ability. So you do try and thank them all. You do try and get the recognition in, and it doesn't matter what sport you do. They're team sports because there's a team of people helping you to get there. But yeah, no, I mean, Beijing was, I guess, to me, an example that dealing with change. How something happens in your life. It doesn't have to be about sport. It could be anything. A big change in your life. How do you deal with it? For me, I went through basically the 5 stages of grief or whatever it is, the denial and anger and depression and all these things, and eventually sort of got through all that, and then you acknowledge it and you say, well, this is happening. What am I going to do here? Well, I can either just retire, or I can make the most of the situation. And I look back and I think, well, when I won those 3 gold medals, I would never have won 3 golds in Beijing if I hadn't been forced to make a change. And the change, it seemed like the worst possible scenario. Literally, it was like the end of the world. I got this phone call. I was like, well, that's it. There's my career over. But without that phone call, at best, I probably would have won another 1 gold medal in Beijing. So, yeah, it was a good lesson for me to learn that try and, if life gives you lemons, make some lemonade.
Yeah.
And so London 2012, obviously home game, so much emotion in that. You were ambassador, the Team GB flag carrier as well. So what was it like for you emotionally, and also in terms of the pressure that you felt, leading into the games?
It was a very emotional games for many reasons, really. And I knew it was my last games. I knew that I might continue on for a year or two, but I wasn't going to make it to Rio. So you're trying not to get caught up in emotion. Everything you do psychologically, all the preparation you do, it's about focusing on logic and about trying to go into this almost autopilot state of mind and not get dragged into emotion, because emotion can be great. It can really help you, but it can also, without any warning, it can spin it around 180, and you can have the negative side of emotions. So they're unpredictable. So yeah, you're working to not be emotional. But I struggled to get on the team. I had injuries. I had teammates who were improving. Jason Kenny was this young up and coming star. We were both going for the same events. There was only 1 rider per nation allowed in each event, so it wasn't that we could both do it together. We had to, it was one or other. So in the end, he got the sprint place, I got the keirin place, and we both rode together in the team sprint. So it was fantastic, but it was a huge challenge, loads of ups and downs just getting there. And when I was nominated as the flag bearer, there was a sense of, is this going to add even more pressure? Because what's it going to be like being the focus on that night, and then the expectation. But you know what? When I walked into the stadium, and and the place just erupted, and there was this cannon of gold confetti and the noise and David Bowie's Heroes playing. It was one of the greatest moments of my life. And I remember just thinking at that point, no matter what happens on the velodrome, the last 4 years have been worth it just for this experience. So to have had the honour of being nominated by, it's not just a committee, it's your teammates have nominated you to carry the flag, to lead your nation at your home Olympics. This was like a real dream come true. So such an honour, and I remember thinking, whatever happens now, this is enough. This is enough for all the hard work. Anything else is a bonus on top of this. So I went into the racing almost with less pressure on my shoulders. It was strange. I went in and I just tried to enjoy it, knowing this would be my last games, extract every last ounce of experience that I can out of it and enjoy it, and try and go out there with a smile on my face and just do the best I can.
Since London 2012, London 2012's had a massive impact on sport generally. And especially, obviously, now with the pandemic, we've started to become a nation of cyclists. Have you seen that impact, and how far do you think we can still go with that?
Yeah, I think we've, after London, or Beijing and London, and the Tour de France successes we've seen, Geraint Thomas and Bradley Wiggins and Chris Froome, cycling has enjoyed this massive increase in exposure. But what I think is more interesting is, as you're saying, during the pandemic, how many people were, they wouldn't necessarily call themselves cyclists, but they got a bike. They just got a bike, and they get out, and all ages, all levels of fitness, just get out, get some exercise, get some fresh air, and reminding ourselves just how much fun it is to get out on your bike. And it's one of the few things you can do as a family that everybody tends to enjoy equally. Whether you're young or old or big or small, you can have fun on two wheels. And yeah, I think it's one of these things that the next stage now for us as a nation, if we can make cycling more appealing, if we can make city centres easier to get about, safer to get about, more people will just get bikes and use them. They won't say I'm a cyclist, they'll just say, yeah, I've got a bike and I'm riding to work or I'm riding to school. And the benefits, you see cities and countries in Europe, you look at Denmark and Holland and Germany, how well things operate, how slick it is to get around on a bike, how people don't have to wear high vis, they're not riding in lycra, they just get on a bike and they ride home from the pub, they ride to work, they ride around. And that would be my dream, that we can become a true sort of cycling nation, that we can get around on bikes safely without any harassment and any hassle. And all this, the media love to sort of wind things up and create them and us, drivers versus cyclists. Yeah. We're all just people trying to get around and doing our things. And if we can do that, and people are more active, the roads are less congested, there's less pollution, it can only be a win-win for everybody.
Do you think the government should step in and support children and cyclists and provide cycles and bikes for young people, especially after the year we've had? Do you think that would be an option or an idea? Or
I think just trying to make cycling safer so that parents are then happier for their kids to go out on their own. When I was growing up, I cycled to school. I don't know if that same route now in Edinburgh, if we were living there, whether I'd be happy with my kids doing that. Or certainly not just now, they're only 6 and 3, but when they're a bit older, you think, God, it's just, I guess that the key thing is that certain cities are now making big pushes to improve cycling infrastructure. You look at Manchester, Chris Boardman with Andy Burnham, they're working really hard to improve Manchester city centre, and I think there's a few other cities around the country doing that too. And once they have the success that will come off the back of that, other cities will see that and they'll go, actually, this is a great idea. We need to copy Manchester or Bath or whoever it is, and then all around the nation will start doing it, and before you know it, it'll be a nationwide thing.
So the opposite of kind of cycling would be motorsport, obviously, after you retired. So why motorsport? Like, where does that passion come from?
I've always loved watching motorsport. I've been a massive fan of, I think rallying. Colin McRae was my first big hero in motorsport. Yeah, and I think it's the speed. It's the, I had a track day car that I used to just go to track days on at the end of each cycling season, and maybe 4 or 5 days a year. And then the car would get put in the garage and I wouldn't really use it while I was competing. And I never thought I would take it any further than that. But it was after I retired from cycling, and I was filming a documentary about Colin McRae, who tragically died in 2007. And it was a documentary about his career. And there was a guy from a sports car company who said, we're doing this novice race series next year. We'd love you to join us. We could get you your license and give you some tuition. And it all kind of spiraled from there. And never thought I would. I competed at Le Mans in 2016. That was my dream, to do that. Nissan helped me through that whole process. And it's just a hobby really, but it's gathered momentum. And I'm just very much an amateur. But at Le Mans, you get to compete alongside the professionals, and it is a huge buzz, but it's the speed, it's the adrenaline, it's the competition, and a little bit of fear as well. You know, it's always
a lot of fear, right?
Yeah, I think.
What does the missus say about you doing that?
Do you know? I think she's less nervous watching me in the car than when she used to watch me on a bike. I think because she used to get so nervous because the end result was so important when I was cycling. You know, it was gold medal or nothing, because you're putting everything into it. Whereas the motorsport, it fits into my life. If you win, if you get a little trophy, brilliant. If you don't, then it's never mind. Good luck next time, kind of thing. And it's for the experience. It reminds me almost of being a kid again, racing BMX. You're doing it for the love of it, nothing else. And it's been great. And I've made loads of new friends and travelled around the world with it. And it's been a great experience so far.
Them GTRs are pretty nice as well, right?
Yeah.
I remember Goodwood. Remember the hay bale.
Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah.
Tell everybody about that story.
So I was sponsored by Nissan. I was an ambassador for their partnership leading up to Rio, and they were backing me through to Le Mans 24-hour race. And they had this new car. So at Goodwood, there's a festival of speed. You drive up the estate, Lord March's estate, and all the new cars are brought out, and it's this massive event, tens of thousands of people there. And I'd been up and down the hill, no problem at all. And they had this new car, this new GTR Nismo, which was a limited edition version of their road car, really powerful, 600 horsepower. And it was fine. I'd been up in it a few times, but the runs were demonstrations. But then on the Saturday, it was the timed run. So you've got all the manufacturers head-to-head. It's Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren, all the big boys. And I thought, we've got a chance here, because it was so quick off the line. It was four-wheel drive. It had great traction. It had, it was a serious bit of kit. And I thought, I could have this. We could beat some of these pros, and this is going to be great. And there's just this left-hand corner called Molecombe, which you come over a slight rise, and if you wait until you see the corner before you brake, then it's too late. You're going to go off. And it's a corner that guys like Mansell, Derek Bell, some of the biggest names in motorsport have crashed there. It's a really famous corner. And all I remember is coming over the crest of that hill and seeing the corner, and my foot was still flat on the floor. I thought, oh no! On the brakes, just understeered straight off. Went in through, I think it was 3 rows of hay bales. Airbags off, absolutely destroyed the car. And I got out, and it was, the worst thing was the car was the personal property of Andy Palmer, who was the Nissan CEO. He hadn't even got the car yet. It was a brand new car. There was only 2 in the country. And I saw him about 10 minutes after the crash. And he came up. I thought, oh God, he's going to go mad. And he said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. He said, "I'm really sorry." I said, "Look, we can replace cars. We can't replace people. It's absolutely fine." And he said, "You just went through those rows of hay bales like they were made of butter." And he said, "You've got out the car, not a scratch on you." He said, "This is brilliant. People think of the publicity. It shows how safe the car is. And we're delighted. Don't worry about it." And I was like, well, what an amazing guy to not see the negative side of things. But yeah, that was the most visible. I've had a few bumps over the years, nothing really bad, sort of touch wood. I had a throttle stick about 2 months ago at 85 miles an hour, turned into a corner, and the throttle I lifted off the throttle on the brake, and nothing happened, straight off into the tyre wall. That was scary. But yeah, things happen, but that's why you have all the safety equipment. You minimise the risks, but it's still a dangerous sport, and you try all you can not to have these accidents.
So one of your other passions obviously is writing. What inspired you to write your book Be Amazing? Obviously you also kind of solely wrote it yourself as well. Is that something you always wanted to do?
Yeah, well, I've written books before, but always as a team effort. So the Flying Fergus series, that was a sort of fictional stories for kids, sort of 5 to 8 year olds, and I wrote that with Joe Naden, who's a really accomplished young adult and children's author, and Claire Elson did the illustrations for that. So it was always, you're still obviously very proud of what you've achieved, but it's a team effort. But when you finally write, completely word for word on your own, it's the real kind of wow. It arrives in your hand. You look at it and think, I've created this, and I was incredibly proud of it. But what I'm even more proud of is the fact that I've had loads of really nice letters, emails, feedback from people saying that they've really enjoyed it, and it's had a positive impact when their child or their child himself has gotten in touch. And the reason I wrote it was because, like I was saying earlier on, just that I always thought that successful people were different, and I've learned that's not the case. So I wanted almost to create a kind of blueprint or a manual for kids to follow to help them find their passion if they haven't found it already, and B, aim high. Aim high, have a plan, and then follow that plan through, and most importantly, enjoy the whole process. But it's basically trying to, it doesn't matter whether it's sport or music or dance or art or whatever it is you fancy doing, whatever it is you enjoy, trying to get the most from it and enjoy it and have the most fun. And it was a great, enjoyable process to write it, and really enjoying hearing other from kids what their feedback is from reading it so far.
As a perfectionist as well, how long did it take you to kind of bring it all together and then publish? It must have took some time.
The thing was, it was quite good because it being my first solely written book, when you have the deadlines and you have the publisher saying, right, we need chapter 1 in by this, and when you first say, yeah, let's go for it, great, and then you sort of forget about it for a few days, and then it's like the email comes in, right, do you think you can have chapter 1 in by 2 weeks time? And then you realise, oh, this is quite real now, right? Okay, I've got to actually get cracking. And you sit down and you clean your desk and you do all the kind of prevarication, and then it's like, right, I've actually got to start putting some words down. And I think once I had the structure and once I knew the skeleton of what I was doing, I actually really enjoyed it. And it was fun because I was going back into my childhood, and I was going through different phases and remembering things that I'd forgotten. I was speaking to my dad and to other people, and recollecting different stories. And and I used different people in the story as well, or in the book as well, to sort of illustrate different points. And I wrote it. I was flying to Japan. I was going to Tokyo last summer to film a documentary ahead of the Olympics, and I'd had a glass of wine. I'd chosen the film I was going to watch. This is great, and then watched the film, ready to settle down, get some sleep, and then I just started having some ideas, and then I sat up for the whole flight, writing down, just scribbling down all these ideas and sort of, I don't know how much I wrote on that flight, but I came back and I thought either it's going to be a load of rubbish or it's going to be, it's going to be great. And I actually used most of it. I was really delighted that it wasn't a wasted trip. I'd actually made the most of that night. I mean, I arrived absolutely exhausted in Tokyo, so that was, I wrote off the first day, but apart from that, it was great.
We finish off our podcast with 10 quick-fire questions. And these are quite random. So
Rich has basically wrote them all.
Is this the disclaimer? Are you getting out of this?
Yeah, just throw it out there.
So first question is track or ball?
Track, I'm afraid. Cycling and driving, yeah.
Oh, Chris, we thought you were going to help me out there. I'm losing on that one.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
You choose your guests better.
I know, that's true, actually. Yeah. What's your greatest accomplishment so far in life?
Having a beautiful wife and 2 amazing children.
Do you believe in ghosts?
No.
Good answer. What's the biggest risk you've ever taken?
What? Sorry, missed that.
What's the biggest risk you've ever taken?
Biggest risk, leaving university, pursuing my cycling career.
Can you sing?
No. Don't ask me.
But if you were at karaoke and you'd had a couple of drinks, what would you sing?
Yeah. Oh, usually if it's in a foreign country, it'll be the Proclaimers, 500 Miles, being Scottish. You've got to do that.
Yeah.
It's the go-to one.
Yeah, I like it.
When are you your happiest?
Oh, coming home, ringing the doorbell, and the kids run towards you and say, "Daddy!" That's the best bit.
The silliest thing you've ever got upset about?
Well, I get upset about all kinds of things that are stupid. The little things. People being just, and you're driving along, being not intolerant. What's the word? Ignorant of other people on the roads, not indicating, not thinking about the people. I think it's a lack of respect is what annoys me about other people, or people to me.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Oh, do you know what? I haven't really thought about that. In 10 years' time, I'll be mid-50s. I hope I'm still enjoying riding my bike. I hope my kids are happy and healthy. I hope I'm still racing cars. I hope I'm doing what I'm enjoying doing. That's the biggest thing. I hope I'm, the key thing in life, I think, is finding something you enjoy doing, and if you can work at that, then you're definitely winning.
How would your friends describe you?
Competitive, I think. You mentioned perfectionist. I probably do try and do things to the nth degree. If I choose to do something, I'll do it as well as I possibly can. You'd have to ask them, to be fair. They'd probably say a lot worse than that.
Yeah.
And the last one is, what's your greatest fear?
My greatest fear is, I don't know. I guess things happening to your kids. That's the greatest fear. I used to worry about trivial stuff like racing bikes on a wooden track. That was trivial stuff. Really, that was life. That was life back then. But now it's bigger things. As long as everyone you love's healthy, then life, you can get through life, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
Chris, it's been an honour. Thank you for your time, and we're looking forward to the next book. Which I'm sure there'll be another book, right? Yeah.
Well,
thank you so much.
Luck. Yeah, thank you so much for having me in the show, Ellen and Richard. It's been great, and good luck with you guys. I hope 2021 is a fantastic year. We can bounce back from 2020.
More of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Get the guns out.
Yeah. So what an honour that was, Ellen, to have a Sir on our podcast, our first Sir, and to have Sir Chris Hoy. What were your takeaways from that podcast?
Yeah, first of all, it was incredible to have him on the podcast, and just so insightful. The thing that I really kind of enjoyed listening about was the fact that owning your own process, control the controllables, basically. So in his racing, focusing on himself, and that scenario that his sports psychologist posed to him about if someone was to break the world record before him, and to kind of go through the race, the process in his head. And I think so many people can take a lot of takeaways from that, to really kind of own in your own performance, and not looking at the end goal. It's what you can do, and I think that was really interesting. But there's so many more. But that was amazing.
And even us with yourself, maybe in a penalty shootout, somebody's missed before, and you're not thinking about that, and you're thinking about obviously just making yours count. And the same with myself. I've had similar scenarios where a heat before my heat has gone, and the guy in the heat has maybe broke the world record or Commonwealth record. And then for me to then kind of just immerse myself in the situation and just perform. And you train for 3-4 years for that one moment. And it just shows that Chris talked about it. There's lots of things that can go wrong. Yeah. So have the confidence that you've done the work and that you're in control.
And also, it's okay to be nervous. So Chris Hoy, he said that he was nervous. He was absolutely bricking it before races. It's okay. That's great adrenaline. That can push you to the next level. That can help you succeed. And what else he talked about was his book, Rich, which is incredible that he solely wrote that book. Be amazing.
Yeah, and the time that went into that and the messaging is inspiring young people to believe and achieve in life, and also aspire to be the best form of themselves. And also to think about, you're going to have those bumps in the road. Chris talked about that. You're going to have those bumps in the road, but don't let them get them down. That's a learning process. Learn from that, and then you'll come out the other side a better person, as well as hopefully then a better athlete. And it's a learning process. Knowledge is power, and Chris has got some great takeaways, and I'm sure those that have listened as well as watched this podcast will not just watch it once or twice, but really trying to home into those messages that they can implement in their life.
Cross comes in, White with the header. 1-0 England!
And here comes Whitehead. It's gold for Great Britain.